us that we needed to make sure that our buyers knew that it was already included in their package. Sales letter, more important than the product itself. Without a doubt, the sales letter is more important than the product itself. The sales letter is what closes the sale for you. So learn copywriting or hire someone. It's not cheap to hire someone that's good. I've seen a lot of junk produced by people who sell themselves as copywriters. I personally think that I can write copy as well as a copywriter for the most part. It's just a question of time. It comes down to time. So if you can't do it yourself, learn how to do it or hire someone that's worthwhile. James, one of my other letters, I said, hey, man, I threw it up the night before. We ran into a problem. I had to produce a sales letter. I popped it up. I didn't even tell him that. I said, I need you to work on the sales letter for another product of mine. He comes back and goes, well, it looks pretty good. I go, okay, cool. Don't worry about it. We'll go on to the next one. So he's actually working on another product for us, right? Yeah. Yep. So there's really nothing new in copywriting that's been repeated for the last 50, 100 years. There really isn't. There's some great courses out there. I bought Dan Kennedy's Mother of All Offers, which included his copywriting stuff, and it's probably the one thing I looked at the most was his copywriting stuff that's in there. Brian Keith Foyles has some Advertising Magic, something Advertising Magic. I thought that was a pretty solid course, very reasonably priced. He is actually relaunching that. I think he's doing it as a membership site. It's part of his membership site, he told me last time I saw. And John Carlton's Marketing Rebel product, and I really do have the utmost respect for him as a copywriter, and also I think he's a great guy. I've met him several times. But I keep trying to convince him from an internet marketing standpoint. He says, yeah, why don't you sell my course? I recommend it for all the time. I stand on stage, I recommend it all the time. But he wants me to accept the orders, process the orders, send him the money. I said, John, there's something called an affiliate software program. You can just put it in there and handle it. I said, I'd love to promote it more, but I don't want to go through the hassles of doing all that. And when I first met John, I bought his Rebel Copywriting. He has a $1,600 course, part of the course. Well, he'll give you a swipe file of some of his best letters. I wasn't in copywriting. I didn't have any clients. I wasn't building sites other than for an AdSense, but I knew the importance of copywriting. My copywriting library is bigger than people who tell me they're copywriters. I've had people come to my house say they're copywriters, and they want to borrow half the books on my shelf. So it's important to have it all there. And anyways, his course for $1,600 fills 2 binders for me, about this big, and I have them all tab separated. So I can go there and flip through them whenever I need to send out an email or write a headline for an article that I'm posting on my site or whatever. The headline's a really important thing of an article. The article should have a headline. It shouldn't just be this is my story about eBay. It should have a headline because that's what people see and respond to when they're searching through the internet. So I try to write my article titles like headlines. Sometimes I get lazy, use the formula, but still, he sold 2 big books for $1,600, a year's worth of email and something else. But at that time, too, he wanted me because I could introduce him to John Reese. I think that was the big thing. I know that's what it was several times. Oh, can you get me to talk to that Reese guy? I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll get you. But I tried to tell him then, too, his assistant was sending out, anyone who subscribed to his product, his assistant was starting from day one and by hand handling all the mailings from day one. And I said, if you move it online, use an autoresponder sequence, when everyone starts up, it automatically starts them at the same spot. If you want to do a broadcast, he didn't want anything to do with it. Didn't want to do it. I'm like, and he was complaining about how much work his assistant was doing, trying to keep track of doing all this stuff by hand from the start. When someone signs a new, they're starting here, and he's sending them that. And he's old school, but he's a brilliant copywriter. His course, Marketing Rebel, is $250. It's a good, solid course. He also gives you the tape, which I think is really nice because I like to listen to stuff too, not just read it, but I pop in the tape when I drive. The true bargain is that he will give you 2 folders full of stuff, and he will answer your email for you if you buy into that package. And the last time I checked, anybody know what the price is now? $1,600, which it was 2 or 3 years ago when I bought it. For an entire year, he'd answer the email if he wanted to. I sent him like 3 emails, and he always answered the damn email. He gets paid $15,000, $20,000 to write a sales letter, and he does answer the email. So I think that's one of the biggest bargains out there today is John Carlton's InternetMarketingRebel.com. And he's got a $1,600 package. I don't know if he's still offering the email for a year. I think he was insane to do it because it was way too cheap. He's worth a lot more than that. And he's a good guy. He actually answered the emails I sent him. I only sent him a couple over a year, but just knowing that he was there for me made me feel good. But I didn't write any copy, so I didn't have to worry about it. But he does answer his emails, and the stack's about this high, and that's one of my top resources for swipe files, is the one that he sold me from that course. It was worth every penny of it. Email capture landing page is very important. I have an entire presentation. It's actually one of the longest presentations that I was supposed to get today, so we better move ahead and see if we can get to it. Very important that the email capture page is written well. And if you look at usability studies, Jacob Nielsen has Prioritizing Web Usability is his newest book. He's got a couple of websites out there. Web usability is very important. It teaches us how people react when they come to a website, and we get to see how we want them to react. All right? We're trying to manipulate them into reacting the way, taking the action that we want them to take. Landing pages are very, very important. Somebody comes to your landing page, you better know what they're looking at, and you better know what they're looking for to make them take action to give you your email. If you're trying to sell a product, you need to know where they're looking when they come to the page, because you have less than 8 seconds to get them to stick. And then once you have that 8 seconds to get them to stick, you have to lead them along the path to the sale or the action that you want them to take. So website usability is something everybody should be studying. Eye tracking studies. A year and a half, 2 years ago, I set out a well-received report. I still get emails from that sequence that's in the Search Engine Voodoo site. I put it together probably a year and a half ago. People are still sending me emails telling me how great it is. All I did was copy the report, say, here's the report I found online. But eye tracking studies, I was out in Vegas, and one of the guys who's an SEO guy, one of the things he said was eye tracking studies changed his entire business. I'm like, yes, that's what everyone needs to know. And there was I actually took I took the screenshot from the presentation that's in my email sequence that's been out there for a year and a half that talked about the eye tracking studies, and I gave the heat maps and all that stuff. And I grabbed one of them. I couldn't find the other one. But that's very important. You have to know where the eyes go on the page. And he said it changed his entire business. Just from eye tracking studies. Not my stuff, but eye tracking studies in general. So, graphics. Graphics are one of the first things people look at the page. So if you don't need graphics, don't use them. Autoresponders, niche traffic machine, that's Sales Automator, folks. But I tease Frank, because Frank, I tell him every time I see him, he's got to buy me at least 50 beers, because I pitch his Sales Automator, and I use it, and he's gotten all this business. And I get these neat little checks, because I never give out a URL. So there's a URL for Frank's deal, nichetrafficmachine.com. But Frank's a good guy. It's his private label version of Sales Automator. I use Sales Automator because I like to have it all in one spot. Somebody asked me earlier, what do I do now that Dynatracker is more expensive? I don't think it's too expensive, but I stopped using Dynatracker and I just moved it all towards Sales Automator and, nichetrafficmachine.com.